Welcome to Kognetics tutorials. Today, we will talk about how private equity firms use Kognetics to understand emerging industry segments and industry trends in a crowded market which is continuously changing, identify attractive industry segments that are likely to offer higher value relative to other segments, identify attractive investment opportunities by tapping into channels beyond the private equity network to increase proprietary deal flow, for example, growing institutionally financed companies, growing bootstrapped non-institutionally financed companies, identifying smaller VC-backed companies in order to gain an early stake into these fast-growing and innovative companies, identifying late-stage VC-backed companies that are due for an exit, looking at secondary buyout opportunities, looking at opportunities to take a company private or leverage buyout opportunities. In this video, we will give you a brief tutorial on how private equity firms can identify growing institutionally financed companies using Kognetics. To begin the analysis, click on Sector Analysis, select Trend Analysis, and click on the question, Predict which sub-industry segments in a sector will see funding activity. Select the sector from the drop-down menu and submit. For this tutorial, we will select the cybersecurity sector. The query yields all the sub-industry segments in that sector and the near-term funding likelihood for each one of them. Kognetics analyzes a number of variables including population and average age of private companies in a sub-industry, the industry maturity, its funding momentum, smart money investment momentum, growth momentum of ecosystem companies, etc., to determine the funding likelihood for each of the sub-industry segments. One can click on the stack visualization icon to look at the insights using the stack view. Here you see that the segments in dark green, like biometric authentication, network behavior analytics, and threat intelligence platforms, are most likely to see funding in the near term. Clicking on any one of these segments will give you brief details on that segment, and clicking on the sub-industry segment name will then take you to a list of questions that you can ask about that sub-industry. For this tutorial, we will select the UEBA, User Entity Behavior Analytics sub-industry segment. To identify high-growth institutionally financed companies, click on the question, what are all the institutionally financed companies in an industry? If required, you can enter more than one sub-industry segment. Select other sub-industry segments, example EDR, threat intelligence platforms, etc., and even set the optional filters. Submitting the question will give you the list of all the companies in the selected sub-industry segments with all their firmographics, business signals, funding details, funding and acquisition momentum, and even patent momentum. One can use any or all combinations of these variables to identify attractive investment opportunities that align with one's investment thesis. For example, if one is looking for high-growth companies that are not recently funded for late-stage funding growth equity, one can apply the following filters. Select companies that have high growth signals. For example, filter on business signals such as company awards and recognition, customer growth, opening new facilities, reported revenue increase, workforce increasing, etc. Select latest funding stage as A, B, or C. Select funding momentum as very low, low, basically selecting companies who haven't recently been funded. The filtered companies can then be analyzed in detail by asking detailed questions about them. For example, clicking on digital shadows will then route you to the next set of questions you can ask about the company. One can look at its detailed profile, identify its closest competitors, determine the list of precedent transactions for that company, or identify growth options for the company by analyzing its strategic gaps across its portfolio. One can even look at likely acquirers for the company. clicking View Company Profile will allow you to see basic firmographics on the company, the industry segments that it is present in, its funding rounds, and related details such as team, signals, partners, etc. Hope this was helpful. There is much more possible with Kognetics. To learn more, log on to www.kognetics.com.